Thank you for logging on to today's webinar, Community in Crisis, Resilience on Israel's Front Lines. With so much of the government's focus on the war, Israeli civilians are stepping up to support each other and their society in innumerable ways. Today, we will hear remarkable stories of Israeli resilience and firsthand accounts of civilian response efforts on the ground. We invite you to submit questions throughout this morning's conversation using the webinar's Q&A function, and our moderator will direct them to today's panelists. Please welcome Aaron Goldberg, Senior Vice President and Director of the Israel Office for the Jewish Federation of Greater Los Angeles.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you also to my colleague Zev Horowitz for making this webinar possible, and to my extraordinary partner in Israel, Shira Katz-Winkler, for the working day in and day out, helping Israel recover from this crisis. The savage attacks on October 7th, left over 1,400 dead, close to 5,000 people injured, and 230 abducted and held hostages by Hamas in Gaza. The horror of that day, the enormity of the moment, triggered an unparalleled outpouring of support for Israel among Jews across the globe and in Los Angeles specifically. 3 weeks later, Israel's military is conducting a military operation in Gaza to eliminate the threat of Hamas and reestablish deterrence across the region. Most of the victims have been buried, and the country is slowly transitioning from shock and mourning to healing. The heroic stories of those who stood ground and fought the terrorists are being told daily. The brave rescue of a hostage yesterday is being celebrated. Yet there's another front line to this war in which you and I, all of us really, are playing an important role, and that war is within Israel's borders. Armies of volunteers and organizations, numbering in the thousands, came out to clothe, feed, provide shelter to survivors and soldiers. The injured were showered with visitors and treats at hospitals. The doctors were provided with the best tools to treat people. And 150,000 Israelis evacuated from Israel's southern and northern border communities have been given support in every way possible during this terrible time. With the generous support of thousands of Jews across Los Angeles, the Jewish Federation of Greater Los Angeles has sent millions of dollars to help Israelis in this terrible moment of need. And why Federation? Because we have the ability to fund services immediately through a network of best-in-class organizations with whom we work. We look at Israelis holistically and understand that to treat someone is not just to give them a bandage for their wound, a bed to sleep in, financial assistance to get back on their feet, support for their children, support the families of hostages, and to stand with them as we rebuild the country and communities together as one people. The rehabilitation of Israel will take a long time, and we need your continued support to make it possible for Israelis to return home as soon as possible. Right now on the screen, there's a URL and a QR code that you can use to donate funds to Stand With Israel. We have raised $26 million of our $50 million goal, and we need your involvement, your support to help Israel address its needs. Today, we will spend the next hour in conversation with two extraordinary people who have been on the front line for weeks. Through our support, they have been there to meet the very needs of Israeli evacuees as they struggle with their new reality. Our guests have been exposed to the hurt and heroism of Israel, and we will ask them to share about their work and the people they have met over the past 24 days. Before I introduce our extraordinary guests, I want to remind everybody, as Robert mentioned in the outset, to please submit questions through the Q&A function, and we will do our best to answer all of them. Let me introduce our guests. Liat Ellert is a director of joint ventures for the Israel Association of Community Centers. In this role, she is responsible for the collaborations and partnerships for the IACC, a network of more than 196 community centers across Israel. Liat got her start in this world as director of 2 community centers in the north of Israel between 2010 and 2017. Prior to her current role, Liat was the Chief of Staff to the Director General of the Ministry of Education, Shmuel Abuav, and she previously worked in the Prime Minister's Office in the Department of Policy and Implementation. Thank you, Liat, for joining us. Gila Rahman is a Jerusalem-based social activist and a leader of the Jerusalem Civilian Command Center. She currently heads the Service and Citizenship Department at Shalem College in Jerusalem. She's a pioneer in the field of experiential education and has developed and implemented unique teaching methodologies that provide students and communities with powerful and compelling Jewish experiences. At Shalem College, Gila designed and teaches a one-year course on challenges in Israeli society and is responsible for extracurricular college activities, including missions, events, and conferences in student life. Previously, Gila spent 8 years as Director of Educational Programs in Israel for Yeshiva University. Thank you, Gila, for being with us today as well. So before we get into talking about the specific work that each of you are doing and the people that you've met, and we're going to talk a lot about the stories because I think the stories will make this very tangible for the people who are with us today. I'd like to ask both of you just to take a minute and share a little bit about how October 7th, the events on that day, met you as individuals. Liat, do you want to start us off?
Yes, so first of all, thank you, Aaron, and for having this Zoom. Also, for me, it's an opportunity to stop for a minute and rethink about everything that we're doing. On Saturday, October 7th, I woke up at 6:30 because I've heard the siren from far away, and I thought, okay, I'm probably dreaming, and the Yom Kippur War got into my, to my head somehow. And because we were talking in the evening before, in the evening of Simchat Torah, we were at my parents, and I've asked them to share with my children how was Yom Kippur for them? How was for them to be on a war? My mother was just, she was a new Ola to Israel. She came from Toronto 3 weeks before the war. She was staying in a Merkaz Klita, in an absorption center of the Jewish Agency in Netanya. And I wanted them to share their stories. And my father was living in Jerusalem. He was a Tzavar. So both of them had different stories, and I wanted my children to hear that story and to hear the history of the state of Israel. So when the war started, I think it just, I thought Yom Kippur was getting in my dreams, and it took me about 20 minutes sitting in front of the television, watching the alarms. It shows like on green lights on the television, realizing this is today, that I'm not dreaming this. And only then I went and I closed the window at the safe room, and I told my kids to go into the safe room. My husband came back. He was on his running on the Saturday morning. He goes out to run. And then only an hour later, we had the first alarm. We live in Modi'in, so it's considerably safe. And then about 2 hours later, Alon was my husband was recruited to the reserve duty, to the army. He was called to be part of Pikud Oref, which is a unit to serve civilians, which is very necessary during the war. So I'm very happy with what, and proud of what he's doing. But it's also very complicated to be with 3 children at home. Working all around the clock, and he's in the army. But considering everything that's happening in Israel, we feel very privileged and honored to serve wherever we can. And this is how my how this October 7th caught me during that time.
Thank you, Liat. Gila, you want to share with us as well?
Yeah. First of all, I need to share that Simchat Torah, October 7th, is my birthday. So that was like my, wake up, and also we woke up with these sirens, and also every so often you hear sirens. So like we got the kids up and went down into the miklat, and then the second siren, the third siren, my husband already bought the birthday cake down, and we were like singing happy birthday in the miklat with some whiskey and a big, massive cheesecake. And I think by the 6th, 7th siren, when we opened up the radio and the phones, we keep Shabbat. So like we didn't have it on. And then we sort of realized the magnitude of what was going on. We throughout the day, like a few hours later, we also we're hearing about the party. I had a girl staying at my house, one of my daughter's best friends. She's from Canada. She's a lone soldier. And once we had the radio on, she heard about Be'eri, so she realized her brother was at the party as well. So we called the police and we started looking for her brother. I'll go forward a bit, that the end of it was not the happy ending. And my husband actually took this girl to go get DNA testing because the parents were still in Canada and they couldn't get into Israel. And they ended up, my husband took her and they waited for the parents to land when they actually told them that she'd lost her brother. And I think also resonate with Liat, that I know a lot of just the people being called up, you start seeing people running in the streets trying to find their army uniforms. Like when you have hundreds of thousands of people also being called up all at once. You know, my brother was called up. He hasn't been called up for 15 years. He couldn't find his army uniform, like, you know, all of it. And the boots, when he pulls it out, they fell apart. And I think that's what happened in the day, like the huge shock and not even knowing what's going on because people are still stuck and everyone's trying to come in. And then also all the people being called up for the army, like it was, I think just that's where it met me. And trying to also help this girl in my house. I will say on a personal level, I lost my brother 3 years ago and this girl is in my house trying to find her brother, and it was very distressing. And hearing also just from the neighbors, oh, this is kidnapped and that's happened and they've killed it. They made a shock. And I think what you said, Aaron, before is like, now we're 3 weeks in. I think now we're realizing the shock's over. And now we're realizing what we're up against and what are the next steps. So, and I want to also resonate. Thank you so much for taking the time, and we feel the love. We really, really feel the love from Yadut Tfutzot and from all the people around. And I know that probably every single person on this Zoom has a nephew or a friend or someone that's either in the army or someone from the south or from the north. Everyone, it's 1 degree of separation. And I was actually in California a month and a half ago. I work at Shalem College, and I brought 22 students over to LA and to San Francisco. It's about peoplehood, and we go and meet different Jewish leaders and students and organizations. And I think this was like the quickest bridge building ever, like within a minute, kiddo. It's just like the Am Yisrael has come together. And I just want to say thank you for this opportunity as well. So that was October 7th.
Thank you. I think, it's interesting. I want to build off what you said, because, if we think about a month ago, there were protests in the streets and there was fragmentation of society. And even with American Jewry in Israel, there was a sense that there was a growing distancing between those communities. And all of a sudden, on October 7th, everything changed. And our families got called up, or friends got called up. We were dealing with some of this. But all of a sudden, each of you, in the context of your work and sometimes outside of the context of your work, you met thousands of other volunteers, people who said, this is our moment that we need to come together. We have to put differences aside, even if we were concerned before that maybe people wouldn't serve or they would serve. And maybe talk a little bit about what does that look like for you? I mean, Gila, you left your work, your day job, to do something intense on a volunteer basis. So maybe share a little bit about that change and how that reflects what many people in Israeli society are thinking about.
So I'll say, I think civilian society is really running the country, and the government knows that as well. Like, they're not trying to replace the civilian society. The mobilization of people, that's how this place was started. It was started by a collaboration of organizations and people, some from the demonstrations, some from political party, Shalem College that had students volunteering anyway. And I think the worst thing happened 3 weeks ago, but also a miracle happened of just everyone just coming together, putting all politics aside and just working together to save our homeland, all of us. I think this is what we need to do now. People are volunteering, people are doing this. That's another thing we're trying to work out. How do we keep the Honen or Shira, you can help me, the
Human
personnel.
capital.
Yeah. Even now, I spoke at the Knesset a few weeks ago, and I think that's something that was said. All the organizations said, like, don't try and replace this. You can't, and they know they can't. You know, when welfare when the welfare department gets hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of calls, they can't man the calls. So they're using us to man the calls, and then they're now coming into our systems, and they realize that. And the government now, when there's nearly 60 hotels in Yerushalayim being with refugees, literally refugees, Israeli Jewish refugees, and they need the volunteers to be manning the hotels, and then they'll put in one person from the municipality and one person from the army, from the home front. It's I think everyone realizes that civic society is the most important thing that's happening inside Israel. I'm saying on the front, not with our soldiers. And we're the ones also helping our soldiers as well. When people ask me a lot, but the army's got everything, and when you call up 350,000 people all at once, they don't. And it took a few days for the army to actually say, we need your help, but they didn't, and they needed our help. And I'll tell you, even behind me is a board this is the board that one of the things we're doing. It's very hard to see, but I've got like defibrillators and cats and suction pads and butterfly. I'm not a doctor. My father's a doctor, but I've learned all this terminology, and this is coming direct from requests from the army. We're not buying these ultrasounds that fit in the pocket and connect to the phone because a soldier has called us. We're working with the head medic unit, and all the camelbacks and the rain jackets and all this stuff. Like, it's all, we're trying to replenish the army, all of the soldiers that are called up. And with the civic sub, we're helping, like, the volunteers are the ones that are driving back and forth, either taking supplies to people in apartments or taking supplies to people in hotels, because the hotels still aren't supplying 3 meals a day. Or if someone has cancer in Netivot, then they still have cancer in Yerushalayim, and someone needs to take them to chemotherapy in Hadassah. So I think, going back to your question, is I've left my day job, and my day job was being in charge of volunteering and student activism and leadership. And I think we have a lot of students anyway volunteering here, and I think this is, and Shalem is an institution in Jerusalem, in Jerusalem, and this is what we believe in. And now it's time to go out of the classroom to do. So I think, and that's
Amazing.
I think that's what everyone's doing from all the different organizations. It's unbelievable. Like, they put politics aside. If you look at our logos and what's going on, it's like, really, that's a miracle, and it's very heartwarming as well.
So Liat, let's take it from where Gila left it, which is, so many people have put things aside, and yet there are big organizations like your own, the Israel Association of Community Centers, which is a huge network of community centers all around the country. And you're working day in and day out to serve the communities. So what's changed? Meaning, on October 8th, what changed in the way that you guys started doing your work, or started doing work differently?
So, our day-to-day job, not in emergency, is, opening the community centers, having the after-school activities, open from 7 a.m. with the daycare centers, with elderly's activities, with teen engagement, leadership. But what we were trying to do, besides those services that you all know and aware, because you also are part of JCC network as well, is that we always try to give those services, but in the concept of community building. What we're trying to do is to build these local communities in Israel, so we can promote the social resilience and to enable the people to feel strong, and connected, because we knew that these strong community ties would bring to personal happiness, but also that we knew that strong communities would bring to resilience in times of crisis. And I don't know how many times I've shared this presentation on a regular day basis, and I didn't know that we would have to see how impact it's got on these times. Because when we talk about how people are part of their community, then we talk about trust and belonging and connectivities. And these are all words that they are day-to-day life. So when the October 7th war started, the volunteers in Sderot their role in emergency, they also have their regular volunteering activities, but in emergency, they are divided by buildings, and they are in charge of those buildings. So they know where the elderly live and where they have people with disabilities and who needs help in those buildings. They never knew that they would have to share the information from which windows to go back because they have terrorists on the streets. Or if we could bring them in phone chargers because there was no electricity in Sderot. So we never imagined how strong these words would be in the right emergent, just on the first days of the war. But also now our directors of community centers from Sderot and from Sha'ar HaNegev and from Sdot Negev are spread in hundreds of hotels around the country. Let's just take Sderot, for example. They have 50,000 people who are spread in 5 different cities around Israel in over 43 hotels. So they are in Eilat and in the Dead Sea and in Jerusalem and in Tiberias and in Netanya area. And in all these cities, they have a semi-mayor, which was appointed by the community center to answer all the needs of the communities and to help them build the day-to-day. So when we were today at the Dead Sea and we went to the Regency Hotel, they've opened up an elderly center, and on the second level, they opened up a classroom. And the next thing that they're going to do is to open up a daycare center. And then we realized that the teenagers are completely, they're completely lost and they don't sleep at night and they disturb everybody else. And this goes on to, a lot of negative behavior like alcohol and etc. And so we've opened up a teen center so that they would be able to come and just meet some teen guides and to be able to do something with themselves. So slowly we try to build the infrastructure for them within the hotels. I have to say we work together with the government. It's slow. I think the government is in a complete shock like all of us. And it's taking them very slow to respond. I myself was working for the government when the Second Lebanon War was happening. Also there, the government, it took a long time to respond, but they did respond quicker than this one, but the shock is also greater. But I have to say, we see slowly that the government is starting to go in, but I wanna, I agree with Gila. I think, I think Micha Goodman said a very nice thing. I think I heard it at Rosh Hashanah, and he said there's a lot of demonstrators in the street, but they don't fight against Israel. They are taking the flag and they're proud of their country. They're proud of Israel. And it doesn't matter from which side they are. They're fighting for Israel. And I think also now we see people who are fighting and knowing what's the big, how important Israel is for the Middle East, but also for the entire Jewish world right now. We've met today missions from around the world. And I have to say, we are also worried about the Jewish communities. We know how anti-Semitism is now very high. And this is also something that we worried about. So we actually fight stronger, not just for the state of Israel, but we know what's the impact of this would happen also for the rest of the Jewish communities.
So let's take a minute what you said about the people who are fighting for the future of Israel, and to see this place really come out of this tragedy stronger, more united. Talk to me a little bit about the people that you guys are helping, the people that maybe sometimes are also volunteering with you. What are they looking for? What do they need? What are they, we know that 1,400 people were killed. We know that thousands of families have been affected. We know that 150,000 people have been displaced within Israel. Let's let's hone in a little bit on those people, the experiences and what you guys are seeing day in and day out. Gil, you want to start us off?
Yeah, so I'll say on a personal level, I lost a student. He was in Sayat Matkal, like the top elite unit. They were the first. They went in, and on that same mission, I lost on that same Talgil. I lost a student and a brother of a student. The same. They were both called Amir, actually. In that team, there were about 10 killed, and there were 2 of them. And on the flip side is that what we did here is we the money that we've raised, and that's thanks to all of you, and we actually built up the Kitat Kononut, the team that is the first responders in Be'eri. We bought all the supplies for them and built it up again. And that's on another personal level, I will say that what happens here is everyone's sort of, it's like a bit of escapism. You've got hundreds and hundreds of people in the building, and you've got hundreds of people in the hotels and driving back and forth. And everyone's sort of, no one's looking at their phones, and no one's looking at Ynet. No one's looking really what's going on. But then every so often someone will get a call, and it will be either from their son saying they're turning off their phone. And then they'll just start crying in front of you. And then you just come over and you give them a hug. And it doesn't matter if they're your friend or they're not friend. You've probably randomly met them on a shift in the morning. And that happens all the time. Or you hear bad news, and you just go over and you give a hug. And that's on the volunteer side. And in terms of, I would say, the evacuees, I would say I walked in the other day and someone was screaming at her father saying, stop smoking, they're going to kick us out of the hotel. So she was screaming at him, and I just gave her a hug, and I sat her down. I never met her before, and I gave her a hug, and I said, first of all, I said, I also scream at my dad, so like, we're friends. And she just sort of smiled, and we sat down, and I gave her a big hug. And I'm not going to give too many pratim, but there was they wanted to kick them out of the hotel because he was smoking in the room, and the father is disabled, and he's mentally also disabled. He didn't even realize what he was doing, and then we moved them to another place, but the wheelchair didn't fit into the elevator because they didn't check it properly. So then we moved them to that's where I think you see the personal stories that come in, and here at the command center, people come all the time. We have what's called the shop. And of course, it's a free shop, but people come and they feel like a mensch. And we've got these girls doing like fashion, they're dressing up the girls if they want to be dressed in a dress or in their tight jeans or whatever it is. And they come and they just sit and they feel like mensches. We're trying to give everyone their dignity. There are people around the block. I live in Baka in Jerusalem. 2 girls, I found them walking the streets of Baka and with 7 kids, all little kids, without their shoes on. I was like, they're not from here, like 100%. And they came from kibbutzim in the south. Literally, there were terrorists in their gardens, and one of the husbands grabbed everyone, put them in like a huge car all together, drove them out of there. Like they couldn't even believe they were saved. And now they've got to work out what they're going to be stuck here for now months. They can't go back home because it's a army. It's considered a closed area. And they've got their organic farm, and now how they're going to file for bankruptcy now. Like, what are they going to do? They owe people money. Like, if you ask for the personal stories, like that's the personal stories. And I'll add one more thing, because I think that Liat spoke about a lot. I think a lot of the people that are evacuees, some of them the government has sort of sent, or the city sent. Like, that's another question. Like, are they sent by someone, or do they self-evacuate? The ones that are in the hotels at the moment, most of them from the cities in Jerusalem, at least, are from cities that in their regular day life, they're on the poverty line anyway. They were just maybe above the poverty line, under the poverty line. And so to tell them to go now to Super Farm, or to go to to go to the supermarket and just buy out, or to rebuy all their medication, they don't even they're anyway on welfare. And I think that's what we're at least dealing with Yerushalayim, is mostly evacuees are anyway, they're in a socioeconomic situation was very poor anyway. So that's the stories we're dealing with. I can go on and on. I'll say just on my own personal is that my brother's in the north. I haven't spoken to him now for days, and he's on the border, and he's got 4 kids. He's 38 years old, and it's really, really scary. And all our friends, and it's scary. That's it. It's scary. And I do, and what Liat also said about the anti-Semitism, my friends in Australia, the what's going on there, and I hear also in what's going on in America, in different places. It's, yeah. So I think this is one big homeland. We're all fighting for our homeland and for everyone, for Am Yisrael. So
For sure. Liat, do you want to, you guys Gila has a very specific perspective because of the work that they're doing in Jerusalem, the people that are coming to Jerusalem, and because it's such a large city, they're also dealing with a lot of people from all across the country. But you guys are all over the country, and so you're dealing with people from all over the country in different places that have been displaced. Maybe share a little bit about the people that you're encountering and the stories that you're hearing.
So I think, just listening to Gila right now, I've realized that this is like an incredible big puzzle, that you have these very, very tiny pieces, which every one of them is the personal or the family story or the neighborhood story or the community story. But then now you have it all mixed up, because you have people from Shlomi, from the northern border, staying at the Down Hotel in Jerusalem, but on the same hotel, you also have people from Sderot. And on Ma'ale HaChamisha, you also have people from Netiv HaAsara, but also from Kibbutz Zikim. So, like, you won't find one hotel wherever it is that is looking the same as the other. And if you'll go to Eilat, you have 60,000 people there. It's a completely new city in the hotels area. So it's just very hard, even for us, to answer the right needs. We just know that we have to break it one community, one hotel at a time, because there's no one story. And I just want to say, people are very modest with their requests. I had a phone call from a friend of a family. Doesn't matter where they moved. They moved to one of the cities that we have a community center, and she said, we have a child who lives with his grandparents because both of his parents were murdered at the Nova party in Reim. And the only thing that the kid wants is to go to an after-school judo activity. And this is something that you can't even, at the same moment, I don't even remember what I did, but this is a request from a very healthy child who had gone through the most horrible thing. He lost both of his parents, and this was his only request. And the grandparents obviously can't afford it. They have a lot of obviously expenses right now, and they're very old. And immediately they just got him, they've opened, it was on Shabbat, they've opened up the community center. The guide came, he brought more pupils to be with the child, and they just started to bring it. So this is just maybe one moment that we can, we know, we were today at the hotels, people who are, when you think of a hotel, you think of the pool, you think of your what's the view going to be? Are you going to see the sea? Or are you going to see the mountains at the Dead Sea? But in a room in a hotel, you have two parents, or one parent if one of them is recruited to the army, and three children in the average in the Israeli, at least from these communities, all in one room. There's no room from between the beds. There's only a way to, go. There's a small fridge. There is a very tiny, kettles and two glasses that you can make yourself coffee in the morning. The parents can't leave the room because the kids won't leave them alone. Some of them can go out and have some fresh air because they have to stay with the kids. And it's not a vacation. This is their home for the next few months. And they are very modest with their request. They say, we have everything, don't worry, we're getting along. But we know that they need a lot of things. I met today a mother at a hotel called Enjoy in Yam HaMelech, which is not a very enjoyable place at the moment, but that's the name of the hotel. And she said, listen, I have a kid with celiac, And she only likes pasta with nothing, no sauce, no anything. And so if I need to give her pasta because that's the only thing she's eating, they're going to a family in Evezoa, which is 30 minutes drive back and forth to make her that pasta. I come back and I said, this is ridiculous. We're going to find you, this, electrical thing and just do it. We'll get you a pot. You can use the water. We'll get you the stack of, and just make her the pasta if she doesn't need. It's ridiculous to waste an hour every day just to make a fresh pasta because that's what the kids eat. We all have kids who are very fussy with their food. And this is, and she didn't ask for it because she's still in shock and she just found a solution. It's fine for her to drive this hour back and forth every day, which is completely crazy. But these are like very minor examples, but we have them every day. We have people with disabilities, as Gila said. So some of them, it's not accessible for them. We have 50 families in the Dead Sea who's got children on the autistic spectrum. They've located them all in one hotel and nobody works with them. You only realized that 5 days ago and you're trying to work on a solution with staff. So it's just taking, very personal stories and adding it up to a very big one. And
Right.
as Gila, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say that, our federation has invested millions of dollars so far in helping Israelis. Through the generosity of the community, there's been extraordinary support that's been given. And at the very beginning, I remember people saying, we need to support hospitals and we need to support medical centers for all the people who were injured and required immediate treatment. We need to support people who right away were being evacuated because many of them left their homes without clothes, without food. Some of them didn't even have the credit cards or IDs or driver's licenses. We need to provide financial assistance for those where rockets hit their houses and they had damage and their houses were unlivable and they needed places to stay. And I think to myself, okay, we're now almost a month after that initial phase and literally thousands of volunteers, right? Gila, you're working with thousands of volunteers. Liat, you're working with thousands of volunteers and you have an incredible staff all around the country. And now we're moving to another point in this operation where we're saying, okay, we still need to find tailor-made solutions for people because everybody is different. The person with special needs who needs that accessibility to their apartment, or the young person who can't manage without an educational framework. We need to provide those things. I'd love for you both to give a sense of when you look out now into the next week, the next 2 weeks and 3 weeks, after this initial phase, what are the challenges and where as a community can we be walking with you into this next phase to make sure we're helping really heal Israel and address the concerns that we have? And before you answer, I also want to use this opportunity just to remind our audience to continue using the Q&A function for those who have questions, because in a minute we'll start asking some of the questions that you've posed as well. So Liat, I don't know if you want to take it first.
So first of all, Aaron, this is an opportunity to thank you because I think that from day one or two, we received a very extensive support that just enabled us to respond quickly. And I don't think there was till now, personal request that wasn't answered. As Gila said, the needs are great. We have a lot of staff who are still in Sdot Negev and Shara Negev, and we have all the Kitot Konenut, I'm sorry, I forgot how you call it in English, who are in the Moshavim and the Kibbutzim and still guarding their localities, who needs equipment. And it's very hard to get it and it's very hard to fund it. So no, we haven't answered all the needs, but I think still with the funding of your federation and a very, very big hug from the JFNA, and from other federations as well. And we work a lot with the foundations also in Israel, the Schusterman Foundation and the Mandel Foundation, and etc. So we were able to answer all these needs. But when we look forward, and we know this is going to be long, and what we call the emergency routine, which is the phase that we're calling from 2 weeks ago until I think it's going to be 6 months before we will get into the rehabilitation stage. There's great needs. I'm just going to share a few of them, and then I would like to also add maybe it's a personal story, but just so you would see how this is national but also very personal. So if we have to look at the hotels, the official numbers are talking about 120,000 people who have been evacuated from north and south. I would tell you that the non-official numbers are more than double. So just so you know, they have, again, a room and three meals a day. We will need to take the teens out for outdoor activities. We would need to help people to start find work in those areas. You know, people will need any kind of assistance so they would have their day-to-day as much as they can manage. I want to talk a bit about the Arab society in Israel. This is a very complicated situation. We're working with the Arab municipalities, and we're working with Arab volunteers. And I have to say that if we will not have any kind of action also in the Arab society right now, and we would keep as much as we can and try to get volunteers and give them an option to be significant on the right way, this would also be a problem. So this is also something that we know how to work with the local leaders, and this is something that only now we're able to start thinking about together with the mayors and together with the local leaders. And this is something that we also have to pay great attention to. The next thing are the people who are still in the shelters from north and south. There are people who are in shelters for 25 days. They have 30 seconds to get into a safe hotel. So people in Ofakim and in Netivot, but also in Ma'ale Yosef and in the north and in Nahariya, they haven't left the shelter for a long time. And some of them can't even go to the grocery shop because it's closed. And even if it was open, they couldn't afford to buy something to eat there because they're not working for 25 days. So this is like a whole circle of problems that we would have to see how we're addressing. And I have to say, the work with everybody, with all the food, Leket and Latet and all the food organization in Israel, and also with the army, is incredible. But I don't think nobody expected the intense of this war. And during the war, we lost a lot of people, good people. One of them was a worker at the community center in Sdot Negev. Her name was Livnat Potts, and she was murdered with her entire family, her husband and her 3 children, in the first hour of the war. And she was running the art therapeutic center in Sdot Negev. They had hundreds of children who came there to do art and to express themselves and to talk about how afraid or happy they are. And she was a great person. She was all enlightened, and it's very. I like all the time. I think I wanna consult her about what we should do with those kids, and it just takes me a minute to even realize that she's gone. And this is like, this phases that we're going through because we are also personally still in shock. But we wanted to take her story and her amazing work, and to take all the workers that have worked with the children in that center, and to open up this mobile art truck that would go around the hotels, and children could come and have an hour of therapeutic work. And I think that could be a beautiful thing that we can do in her and her family memory, but also that would be some kind of light to these children in the hotels. And I think if you will have a lot of these trucks doing music and art. And I don't know what we can, bring back the hope. We do have a lot of tikva. I don't think nobody now has lost it. We just need to keep reminding it every day, every hour.
Thank you. Gila, what about you in the Jerusalem Civilian Command Center? I think in this war, one of the most popular words that everybody has become familiar with is the word Hamal, this idea of a command center. There have been hundreds that have been established all over the country, in cities, around specific areas, national level ones, etc. So you have the privilege of working and leading the Jerusalem one. Where do you see, will the volunteerism continue? What do you see as some of the upcoming challenges as we go into the next few weeks?
So before I answer that, I just want to, I think everything that Liat said, I think they're the same challenges everywhere, and that's what we're going to need a lot of funds for to continue. And again, our kids are they're going in now. Like they just went in 2 days ago, 3 days ago, and let's hope that the North stays semi-quiet, because this might also just drastically change as well. Like we're sort of planning the next few months, but it might change as well. We need to bear that in mind as well. I'll add on to I'll add on one more thing, and I'll talk about the Hamal. I think in terms of what is going to be needed in terms of funds is like these therapies. Like I think there's a limit of how long the sports teachers and the makeup artists and the hairdressers and how long are these people, and the teachers and the psychologists, and like everyone knows therapy, it costs a lot of money. It's not 50 shekels an hour. We all know that. And I think that this is what is the next phase of what we're going to need help with, is to run these activities, to pay people, to pay the heads of the teams that are volunteering. They can't live off love. They need to pay their rent. And I think is like to start paying civilians and professionals to work with these problems. Like I don't think that a girl doing in fourth year social work should be, when there's a hard case, she doesn't handle it. She gives it over to a social worker, but there's going to be a limit of time, how long these people are going to be doing everything for free. So I think that's something very important. I will push, you're talking loud about the art therapy. I think it's beautiful. And we've been talking here about a lot of sports therapy and rehabilitation through sports. And we're going to have soldiers that need it. And already the units are speaking about it, and kids that use it. So I think we're already working out programs that we can do. And I think we'll work together, and everyone's working together. And that brings me to the question that you asked about Hamal. So Hamal, it's actually, the shorish of Hamal, chemla. Chemla is like, what's chemla in English? No, Shira, you have, pity, not pity, but it's like, acceptance. Compassion. Yes, compassion. And Hamal and chemla. And I think that's exactly what's going on here. We're trying to treat everyone at their own, as a ben adam, kol haolam nivra, for this one person. And I think this is what these Hamals are doing. It's just compassion. It's really, that's what these Hamals, and I'm the last, but my son has his own Hamal, little Hamal in Bakan. There's so many different Hamals, and there's so many things going on. And as long as we're working with each other, we know what everyone's giving to each other. I think that's the secret of this. And these Hamals should continue. The government needs it. The municipalities need it. The Matnasim needs it, Liat needs it, everyone needs these Hamals, and these it's supposed to be an emergency response, but it's going to be a long emergency response center, and it's very important also for me to relay that message today. I met with JFNA mission yesterday, and it's everything Liat said, it's unbelievable. Everyone's coming. I want to ask also that we don't push too quickly, that we're going to the second phase, because we're not there yet. We haven't even mapped out. I don't know how it is in Eilat exactly, but Yerushalayim hasn't even mapped out all the people that are in Yerushalayim, because there are people in the hotels and there are people in apartments, and we're trying to map it out. So we're not even there yet. And I said before with our soldiers, like we don't know where it's taking us either. So and the Chatufim, the kidnap. So like I've got a friend of mine. Her son is Hirsch. She's my friend. My son's there every day in their house. I write with her every morning with Rachel. And these are our people. I was on a program 2 years ago. One of the people in my program, she was taken out of the WhatsApp straight away. When we worked out that she was one of the people that was kidnapped, we took her out of the WhatsApp because we realized they took their phones. So we're trying to go into the next phase, but we've also got to realize we're still in the shock and still fighting here for like really for our lives. So
I think that's both of you have laid out something that's really important, which is that we've done a lot, but there's still so much more to do. And there's still so much uncertainty around it. Like you mentioned, Gila, about whether or not this escalates to the north or it stays relatively contained around Gaza. There's a lot of uncertainty that we may find out in the coming weeks. And, as I mentioned, we have raised a lot of money and there's still a lot of money left to be raised. We have a $50 million goal. We're only roughly halfway there. And we want to encourage everybody to continue to show their generosity to do this work because there is so much more. And despite the generosity in dollars, there's also one of our participants has also asked, and we've gotten this question a lot over the last few weeks. Is there a way for people to donate goods, or is it better that they donate money that you can then use to buy what's needed on the ground? How do you answer that when people ask that question?
yeah, you can answer and then I'll answer.
I'll have to say it's very difficult to collect items. People, some of them don't want to use secondhand, and we can't even force them. We've opened up shops, secondhand shops in Eilat and in the Dead Sea and in Tiberias, and Gila is doing this in Jerusalem. So we can take the goods. It's very hard to get volunteers to spread them. So it's a bit of a difficulty at the moment. And I think people had got whatever they want. But I can tell you that one thing that is very useful is all the Xboxes and Sony PlayStations that can keep the children and the teens occupied for long hours. If it gives the parents 30 minutes, 40 minutes break, that it means the world for them. And we've opened up these centers we're trying to open these centers in every one of these hotels, so they would be as busy as can be. So maybe that's one thing that can be done in addition to other options.
I was in the plane business for the first few days, including people from LA, and someone asked me that yesterday with the JNFNA mission. It's when it comes to army supplies, it's very, very difficult to be able to acquire the army supplies that the army allows to go in. So, right, black Casio watches, because we can't go in with Apple watches into the Shetach. So that's something easy. But it's also what was happening was people were packing up a lot of bags and it was getting not even put on the actual El Al plane. And then you go to the airport, you bring a truck and you come back. And I know that it's we feel the love, but to be really, really honest, at the moment, we know now what we need and we know the supplies. And like there are a few lists. Like we've got a very, very basic list that if people still want to send supplies, we've got something very basic that's something that, can be accepted everywhere. And especially if it's civilian clothes, like I would say underwear and socks and things like that, that's great. But when it comes to army supplies, it's very difficult. But I will say that if someone's getting on a plane and coming to Israel and they've got their 2 duffel bags to themselves and they're actually putting the bag on themselves and they're getting off the plane with those 2 bags, and then we'll be happy to accept anything. And we'll send it to the right place. But that's the honest truth at the moment. And I agree with Liat, if it's like, high-end games and things like that, yes. And we'll take it. Any of the Hamals will take it. Hope that was clear.
We're reaching the end of our webinar, and I want, and before I close it up, and thank you both, I would love for you to leave us with a word of inspiration and hope. One of you said earlier that there's still optimism, there's still tikva, there's still hope, and in a time when things feel so dark and so tragic, I think hearing that message of hope is really important. So maybe each of you share with us one message of hope, one thing that you take that you can help inspire our community before we say goodbye.
First of all, I just want to say that personally, the phone calls, the text messages, these Zooms are giving us a lot of strength. So if any of you have got a friend or family in Israel, just send them, we think of you. You don't know how much energy it gives, because we have some of the day are unbearable and some of the day are, it's just another day. And it's just a roller coaster. So this is just something that I also think that can be done. And I want to say that, my daughter is 15 and she's volunteering every day since this war started. And I'm not afraid for myself. And I have to say, I'm also not afraid for my husband because I trust that he would be okay. I'm afraid for my children. I'm afraid for their future here. And everything that we're doing is for the next generations to come. And we will fight hard. We have the tikva. We know that we will win this. We know that we will get stronger. It would be long. It would need a lot of energies, but this is why we're doing this. And I think that all your support is just giving us, I like a fire engine from the back. Just, don't rest, move on, go to another shelter, go to another hotel. This is like, we're not resting because you're helping us not to rest. And I think that together with these powers, we can win this. We have a strong Israeli people. We have the strong Jewish people. And we will meet at the very end of this, giving hugs and celebrating and drinking beer in Tel Aviv and in the sea next to Gaza. And we will see Israel thriving back again.
Thank you, Gila.
I'll say Liat mamash chizakt oti. Like I got a lot of power from Liat. So I think the hope, there were so many demonstrations this year, so much hatred. It's incredible to see, the Haredi kids walking in here and the Chiloni. Like I think that's what's giving me hope, is that Israeli society is like healing, not from the trauma of this war, but it's healing. Just the love is incredible. People are opening up their homes. You say you're calling for a family and people that have, got these high-end, very expensive homes. Yeah, for sure. Come in. And people are just want to help the whole time. I placed a family from Netivot into an American family. She felt so bad. I said, people just want to help. And I think that's really, really beautiful. I'm like smart. It's all the time. And I would say the last thing is just, I think I said it before, like it's the quickest gesher. It's the quickest bridge that's ever been built. And when you see these chayalim, these soldiers come in and they grab their box, or these people that are grabbing their boxes of the food, and then they're seeing me talking English to people, giving a tour, and they realize, they put two and two together because someone's explaining that, where the funds are coming in and where people are helping us. And all of a sudden, like, it's not only the summer camp that they went to 20 years ago, let's say the Chayal, but they understand that like people are behind them, and the people in Netivot and Sderot and Shlomi, and they all understand that the whole of world Jewry is trying to help, is really, really trying to make things better for them. So that's my line of hope. I feel it all the time, every day, with the WhatsApps and also us back. I know that you're having a hard time too, and I think that we need to strengthen each other. And so.
Well, I want to thank you both, because I think in this time that feels so dark, you've both given us a lot of optimism and hope, and we encounter every day the heroes that have saved people, but the everyday heroes that are doing incredible work in the field, and that we're proud to call partners as we try to heal Israel and heal the Jewish people together. So thank you both for being with us. And again, a reminder to all of those who have joined us to support the work that's being done in Israel. You see the QR code. You can go to our website, jewishla.org, and help us in this emergency effort to make sure that we as a Jewish people in Israel get through this emergency stronger and more united. So thank you all for being with us.
Thank you so much.
תודה רבה. תודה.